So, good morning, guys. Today, we're going to be talking about structural liquidity. Now, as we all know, the first diagram here is the diagram for inducement liquidity, which is this one here. This is the diagram for our inducement liquidity, where you can see a sweep, you can see your first break of structure, a pullback, a second break, and then a retracement back to a point of interest and a continuation. But in the case of a structural liquidity, we don't have the pullback after the break of structure. We have that pullback before the break of structure, just like so. So this is an example of structural liquidity. This is how we are to see structural liquidity. We want to first identify a sweep, then a pullback before a break of structure. Now, before you mark that place as a structural liquidity, you need to see the break of structure happen first, and it needs to happen very close to your POI. This is how it normally forms. This is how we see structural liquidity. Now, I have an example here I was really working on, where we can see our sweep. We can see where market swept liquidity, although the whole sweep, it swept two lows here. You can see this low in particular. It also swept this low down here. Now, after that, if for the normal inducement trade, we are supposed to see a break of structure before a pullback. But here we have this pullback here. We have this pullback here as our structural liquidity, because before the break of structure happened, that pullback happened. It happened before the break of structure, so we'll take that as our structural liquidity. Now we now move to the next. We now see that market broke structure twice. Actually, here market broke structure twice, but a clear example of this trade is that the trade actually failed. And why did it fail? This was the supposed high we'll be targeting, but before market could come back to tap into our point of interest, market had already taken out the high, and it did not even close above, so that we can say we'll be targeting more highs. It swept that high, meaning it's going to go to take out the low, which is this low here. It's going to come back to take out this low. That's why this setup failed. But for educational purposes, the setup was actually a valid one. If it had not taken out this high here, this was the cause for the failure. So normally we are just supposed to have something like this. We are supposed to have like this. Now we have a sweep. Now after that sweep happened, we were moving up and we had a pullback, a break of structure. Market pulled back a little bit and swept that high. We are supposed to just see this immediately, but instead market did this again, taking out that high, meaning it's going to just go back to take out the low. because it has, remember the rule about liquidity sweep that I told you guys about. So this is what happened, and that's why the setup failed. But if that had not happened, we'll be taking our entries from this particular standpoint. Since we have identified our structural liquidity, we can just mark this particular order block, as our entry point, and you can see how market reacted well, but it had already taken out that high and closed with a wick. If it had closed with a body, this was supposed to hit CP. Now this is one example, and this is how you are supposed to see structural liquidity, but not with the error that happened here. Now if I'm to look for more examples, let me see if I can identify more examples. Okay, I think we have one example here. So first we want to identify our sweep. Now we know below here we have a sweep of liquidity. Here below here we have a sweep of liquidity here, and then we're expecting to take out this high here. We're expecting to take out this high here. That's for a break of structure. Now before market could take out that high, although it went with a wick, but did not close above. You get me? It did not close above. Take note, it did not close above. It only closed above after market pulled back, which is here. Market pulled back here. Market pulled back here and then went to break structure for the first time. Remember, a break of structure only happens after we see a full body close above or below. If there is no full body close, we cannot call it a break of structure. So you see the first touch on that high, it closed with a wick. So we cannot take that as a valid break of structure till we see a full body close. This was the full body close, so I'll label it as my structural liquidity. Okay, that's my structural liquidity. And then market went ahead to break structure for the second time, yeah, just to validate the whole structure. Market went ahead to break structure for the second time. Now you can see on this part here, it just broke structure for the second time and reversed back to the entry. There was nothing like a sweep before it went back to the entry, like maybe market taking out that high again. It closed with a full body, then drop down. Now dropping down, what we want to do now is identify the closest POI to our liquidity. And here the closest POI to our liquidity is actually this this fair value gap here. And then we target the most recent high that was created, which is this one here. Target the most recent high that was created. You take your trades as so. Your SL below the FVG or below your zone, most preferably below the candle of the FVG. Then you target this high like this, and this is a trade with structural liquidity. That's a trade with structural liquidity. Now structural liquidity is not something I widely use because I'm just using one particular entry model, but yeah, you guys ought to have knowledge about structural liquidity and other forms of liquidity. That one can come from maybe when you're trying to study your charts. That one can come from you actually. You must not necessarily try to grasp everything at once. You understand? You must not necessarily try to grasp everything at once. So that's basically an example of structural liquidity and how to use it. But I suggest you rather stick to the use of the inducement liquidity, because that's the one I'll be using to teach you for the entry model.